sessions so far. And today with us, we have an eminent speaker, Pragati Rai, and she will be talking about how to be a 360-degree growth enabler. Uh, and here is more about Pragati. And Pragati is the head of developer relationships APJ Twilio. And she is the head of developer relationship and she's a COO ISSA India chapter. She is the chair in Women in Cybersecurity India chapter. She's author of a book called Android Application Security Essentials and the winner of 2014 Zinno Thought Leadership Award. With over 20 plus years of experience in technology evangelism, strategy, innovation, global program management, as well as product management roles across various industries like embedded systems, payments, commerce, banking, and products, she has been a passionate advocate of bringing people, technology, and processes together. She has a never quenching thirst of technologies and processes that simplify life and brings a positive impact on people life. She believes that people, both customers and employees, are the life and blood of an organization. Keeping them happy, satisfied, and engaged is the key to building great products and great organizations. She's also been smitten by the startup bug early in 2003 when she started working on her startup called Moblast. She also works with academia all over the world in different capacities as a faculty member, the guest speaker, mentor, campus hiring. She currently works with Stanford Continuous Education and Swapaksh, a school for migrant worker kids. She is recognized and most sought out speaker at international technology events. Pragati has a dual master's in computer science and she's also a gold medalist. She has one master's from Banastari Vidyapeeth and the other from San Jose State University with specialization in client server architecture. She loves to read, organize things, and spend time with her family and friends. Pragati, it is my great honor to welcome you today to the session.
Lakshmi, thank you so much. And thank you for this gracious introduction. Lakshmi reached out to me and said, let's talk about the 360-degree growth enabler. I didn't know what it meant. So I asked her what it is about, and she pointed me to this book. And Lakshmi, move on to the next one. Yes, it's by John C. Maxwell. And what this book really talks about is how to be a leader, irrespective of your position in the organization. The second thing this book talks about is how can, in any position in the organization, we can influence upwards, like to the leadership, across to the peers, and also down to the people who we lead or who look upon us as for guidance. The book also talks about some myths that we as individuals live with and which inhibits our ability to move up and to influence. For example, if I have an 80 people team, I'll be able to lead. Or if I reach at the senior manager level, I'll be able to lead. Or if I'm given a really big problem to solve and I'm provided with these resources, I'll be able to influence. And many such myths. So, this is what the book is about. And as I was reading the book, some instances, some incidents from my career sprung up where I had held those myths and I didn't perform to the best of my abilities, or situations where somebody really propped me to do something, or the situation demanded and I was put on the spot and I had to figure out a way to influence. So what I decided was, in today's presentation, let me share those scenarios, those incidents that happened with me where I fumbled, and I'm sure we will all be able to relate with it and discuss about it in the Q&A session. So the first instance that came to my mind was when I was the fresh grad and I joined Motorola as my first job. And I honestly had the same expression as that kid in the presentation has, because I came loaded, fully loaded with all the badges, gold medal, perfect GPA score. I was the only one who was selected in from campus in Motorola, and I was going to do embedded programming and placed in the best, in the highly sought after team in the mobile operating systems, which was the security team. So I couldn't be happier, and I was ready to change the world. So I went first day to my job, and really excited, and I went to the boss and like, yeah, how can I change the world? And going to the next slide, my boss looked at me and gave me a whole bunch of books about security to study. Oh my God, I thought I had done studying. So for the next 3, 4, 5 months, all I was doing is I would study and I go back to my manager and say, yeah, I'm done. He would ask a couple of questions and I would fumble and then go back to reading. Finally, after 4 or 5 months, when I was able to answer 5 questions correctly in a row, is when he said, okay, let's talk about work tomorrow. And I was so excited. So the next day, I went to my boss again, very ready to change the world. And my manager gave me a 1,000-page specification document and said, make sense out of it. Now, I was working on the mobile platform, and inside the mobile phones, there is this IC integrated circuit. And because we were doing embedded programming and we had to interface with this hardware. So that specification document listed out how do we, what parameters should we pass, would be the return values, how to interpret the error conditions, blah, 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 blah. It was a huge document. I was so scared. I said, okay, oh my God, the next 3 months of ordeal again. So I said, it's not happening again. So I put my head down, I shut down the TV, shut off my friends. And in the next 7 to 10 days, I actually condensed that entire 1,000-page specification document into 10 slides, which just compressed it and had all the important material that was supposed to be. And after that, I took it to my manager and said, here is the specification document. And this is what it talks about. This is what is missing. And lucky for me, I had a degree in electronics too. So I was able to understand the OR and the NOR gates. I was like, okay, this is everything here. And the glow on the face of my manager, it was amazing. He was so excited to see that, and he was so proud. And he would go about showing those 10 slides to everybody, like, yeah, I know what this what this big specification document means. I know about it. And so, if you move to the next slide, my manager and I became friends in a way that he began to trust me. And what I learned from that incident was that specification document wasn't just a pain for me, it was a pain for everybody. And I, just because of the fear of going back to the 3 months of studying, I thought a little differently and actually created a capsule of knowledge or a nugget of knowledge that could be shared with a lot of people. And so I became like this really cool fresh grad in Motorola, who everybody thought was a subject matter expert in that specification document. So that's what I did, just thinking a little differently. So if you're in this situation, such a situation, think differently. Try to create a capsule of knowledge that is not just makes you smarter, but other people's life easier as well. Okay, so that was the first instance that came to my mind. Now, going on to the next slide, and fast forward to like 5 or 6 years in Motorola, I found myself in a ninja situation. Now, what was happening there? So I was probably like a senior software engineer at that time, and my role was to actually design a certificate store for on this Android mobile on Android operating system. We were working on Android at that time, and so I have to create the certificate store, and I have to sign all the applications that come my way. So on the phone, there would be a browser team, there would be a video team, an audio team, and the camera team, and many other teams, and they would send their applications to be signed by the system certificate. And that is something I was supposed to do, and then make sure it ends up in the build. So I was doing that fine, and the team was geographically located, diverse team in 18 plus locations across the world. And we had moved to a new system. We were using Git for managing the entire operating system. So everybody was pushing their code, and there was just one single repository. So when these requests would come in to me from different regions, like sometimes early morning, sometimes in the evening, sometimes the first version of the app would come, and then the version 2 would come, and then 2.1 would come. And I was so worried. I was worried because I don't want to be the one who breaks the code, right? And because then I would be named and shamed. So I was very, very worried. So I was like a ninja, taking these requests, working 24 hours, and I didn't know what to do. So I had to find a solution for myself. So what I really did was, and that was really to ease me of all the work that I was doing. Lecture, moving on to the next slide. I worked with the different teams within the organization and built a process, a very simple process. Like, okay, if your requests for certificate signing come in before 5 p.m. PST, it will be released in the next build. If you want if you're sending me an updated app, make sure the subject line says so, and a few other such rules. And I had an agreement with all the teams to follow that. And it made my life peaceful, because now I wasn't answerable to anybody if a request came at 6 p.m. So that's what I did. So then after that, 6 months later or so, when the performance review happened, and my manager asked me, "So Pragati, tell me, what was your biggest accomplishment in the last 6 months?" And just as a techie, right, we just think in terms of tech. And I said, you know what, I built that really cool certificate store, and this is the first time somebody did it. I'm so excited about it. That's what I did the best. And what my manager said was that, well, of course you did a fantastic job in that, but what was really, really awesome is that you built this process that not just made your life easier, but it made everybody's life so much better. And he had been getting a thank you notes because of this process that I had built. And other teams were also trying to replicate this kind of a process. So moving on to the next slide, Gayatri, what I learned from this situation was, and it wasn't because I was looking to be an influencer or a leader, it was just because I wanted to save myself from this crazy work thing that was coming my way. What I understood was that if I solve a problem for somebody, instead of whining and complaining about a situation, if I just solve the problem, not just for myself, but for everybody, I actually do create a lot of influence across and win the love of the higher ups or the leadership. So that's what I learned. And so if you are in such a situation, just a thought, just an idea of how I did it, and if you would want to do that again. Okay, and moving on to the next slide, Gayatri. Okay, now it's about the small fish. So again, fast forward another few years, and this time I was at PayPal. I was the first Android engineer that PayPal had hired, and it was 2010 or 11, some during that time. And my job was to actually build an Android app for PayPal. So PayPal was doing amazing, but it was predominantly on desktops. And after spending so much time in Motorola, I joined PayPal to be the person who helps build the Android app. Now, um, fine. I would have been like what, a staff software engineer or somebody. So then when I started writing the app, I realized that there has to be some changes that need to be made, right, to a custom things for the mobile client. So moving on to the next slide, for example, the for example, the database has to be changed a little bit. For example, if it's a mobile client, and imagine, we were in the early days in 2011, it was still very slow. You can't return like 100 values at one go, or the phone number can't be a PII, or some security policies had to be changed so that wireless can be enabled and stuff. And so what I found myself was, instead of coding, I was actually speaking to all these teams: the security team, the compliance team, the UI team, the database team, and just trying to tell them how to modify their systems, or how to do things a little differently, so that the things work on the app, right? And I tried, but it wasn't happening. So, as the person who was responsible to build the app, my neck was on the chopping board. So, I had to figure something out. So, what I did realize was that all the people I'm talking to are really smart engineers and genuinely nice people. But you know what? They haven't worked on mobile, they don't feel it yet. So, until and unless they experience it, they won't be able to help me out. And they won't be able to help me advocate the change that I'm trying to make. So what I did was, with the blessings of my senior leadership, we organized the first ever hackathon in PayPal, and we invited all the teams in, and the objective was to build mobile apps. So the teams actually came together, they studied mobile, and I was like training and teaching and mentoring and doing all the fun stuff. And they actually wrote the apps. And when they wrote the apps, they understood the system, and then they realized that, yeah, it's a little different. And so things need to change a little bit. So instead of me advocating all the change, the little small fish in a big ocean, they became the advocates, and they started influencing. And then the changes happened, and my app came out, and I was successful. So moving on to the next slide, what I learned was that, yeah, a small little fish can actually make an influence, can create a ripple effect of change for the entire organization. So that's the scenario third that came to my mind. And with that, I move on to the last part of my slide deck, which is about really empathy. So, what I want to say is, leading the change, or trying to be this one person uh, who is trying to impact somebody, influencing somebody, it can be overwhelming, right? It can be really overwhelming. It's a hard job. So if you move on to the next slide, uh, Gayatri, there was this one time in my career where I felt so overwhelmed. I felt so down. And that one day I was just sitting in the parking lot, completely lost, right? Didn't even have the will or the energy to get into the car and drive away. I was just sitting in the parking lot, doing nothing. And then this senior executive, her name's Selena, she's at Intuit right now. She walked in, and she stopped, she paused, and she asked me, Pragati, what's, she didn't know my name. She just saw somebody sitting completely lost. She asked me, how, um, how are you doing? What's up? And I somehow started speaking all the things that were happening, what was not working. and how I'm feeling so down and I'm so feeling so let down. And she said, okay, let's meet tomorrow. And she set up an appointment with me, and then I met with her next day, and things started to become better. What I want to say here is that for me, I didn't feel comfortable reaching out to anybody, because for me, the notion that I had was it's really cowardly to ask somebody for help or to reach out for help. And I'm grateful that Selena stopped and asked me. So what I want to leave you all today with is that if you are feeling down, if you're feeling overwhelmed, because we are all juggling so many things and we are all trying to make an impact and be the leaders and doing, change the world. If you're feeling down, if you're feeling overwhelmed, reach out to somebody. Now there are plenty of resources to reach out to people. This Women Who Code uh, Connect India that's happening today is also one such event. You can reach out to any one of us. And on the other hand, if you feel that somebody is acting not like themselves, if somebody is down, if somebody is feeling sad, just reach out to them and say and ask how they are doing, because maybe they're just waiting for somebody to ask. So, with that, that's what I wanted to say. And moving on to the last slide, Gayatri, please look out for each other in these challenging times, and help out each other. So, with that, thank you so much, everyone. It was wonderful talking to you. I am very easy to find on the internet and very approachable. So, you can reach out to me, and we can definitely talk and connect. And I can reminisce and more about my career, and uh, we can have a discussion. Thank you. And over to you, Gayatri.
Yeah, thank you so much, Pragati. It was such a fun-filled talk. I really like the way you have brought up these characters and then the story, what you were building, right, from the beginning of your career, how you were in optimization, how you became a problem solver, how you actually influenced the entire organization to get into an idea of building a mobile application. You understood the pain point that they were not comfortable with it. That's the reason they were not venturing into the area, and you made it easy with the hackathon and taking
Yeah.
support at times. That's very good point that we at times we forget and then we think we are on our own, but that's not the case. We just need to reach out to leaders for help and get people hear our ideas and then make the impact much bigger. With that said, and thank you so much. I mean, the audience have really enjoyed your talk and your storytelling. The chat and the comments have been like filling up, and yeah, thank you so much for your time, Pragati, for
Thank
coming
you
and
so much,
talking.
Lakshmi, for having me here, and thank you for Women Who Code. Such a great platform for all of us to connect. Thank you, Lakshmi. Bye bye, everyone.